2015.5 XC60 having some issues where it's shutting off while driving. I noticed this positive battery cable is getting extremely hot with a multimeter hooked up. Negative on the negative, positive on the positive of the battery. So the battery has right now 12.91 volts. Now what is interesting, I believe this to be like a circuit breaker of some sort. I think it's tripping. I don't know if it's due to heat or what. Before the circuit breaker, 12.9 volts. After the circuit breaker, right now 1.8 volts. So definitely something is going on, either a faulty circuit breaker or maybe the heat causing it to trip. I'm not sure, but it's definitely an issue and very, very dangerous that it shuts off while driving. So I let the vehicle sit for about 5 minutes and it seemed like it reset it. This is the third time that this has happened, and the last time I ended up unplugging the battery and then I immediately plugged it back in and it seemed to reset it. But I'll show you here. Again, the battery, we're looking at 12.8 volts right now. Before this little circuit breaker, 12.8. Now after that it was 1 volt. Now that it's reset, 12.81. So something is going on, either overheating this cable causing this to trip, or this little guy right here is just faulty. All right, now to do some more digging. Quick update, it's been a little while, about a week and a half since I had the issues with this thing stalling out. Long story short, I ended up purchasing this vehicle from Carvana, so once I started experiencing some issues, I reached out to Carvana and they have their own warranty program thing through what's called Silver Rock. They pretty much limit you to a couple shops to take this thing to. So I ended up taking it to said shop. I won't mention any names just quite yet. Well, anyways, they had this Volvo for 8 days. And well, let me show you the repair that they made. So let me start by saying the battery panels were already removed, mainly because whenever this first happened on the side of the road, I removed the panels and I was poking around, and to get home I unplugged the battery, plugged it back in, made it a couple 100 yards, stalled out again, did the same thing, unplugged the battery, plugged it back in. Well, anyways, I was able to limp it home till I could poke around and determine that there's some issue going on with either this resettable fuse or the whole entire cable. Well, anyways, Silver Rock says I got to take it to shop A. I drop it off to them. They say, yes, that is in fact an issue with this. They don't splice anything. They will replace the entire cable. Again, they had this thing 8 days. I just got the call saying how it was done. Picked the vehicle up, drove just fine. Well, once I got back home, I decided, well, I have the panels in the back. I'm going to throw the panels back on. And then I spotted this. So the first thing that drives me nuts is the simple fact that this is supposed to go in a channel. It's supposed to be 90 degrees, but it's not. They just decided to tighten down, bend that tab, whatever. I can just loosen that. That's probably a, I don't know, 13 mil. Straighten that back up, 90 degrees, tighten it down, no big deal. Well, then I started to follow along, and this monstrosity of electrical tape caught my eye. 100% not OEM Volvo if this whole cable was replaced, and you could feel it. There's definitely a crimp connector of some sort in here. Furthermore, missing a bolt. That's awesome. So this, I mean, it's not super loose, but that's still incredibly frustrating. And then I think lastly is this is supposed to go down into here. This rubber piece kind of expands and it's supposed to be longer to go inside of here. And you can see they just lob that off and just kind of hack this thing together. So tomorrow I'm dropping the vehicle off back to this shop that shall not be named at this point in time. And I'm really hoping that they resolve this, because this is some hackery and it's quite insulting for this Volvo. One last final update for you, and here's what we're left with. Well, I talked with the shop, I talked with Volvo Parts Service, all sorts of people at Volvo, and what I came to find out was there is another battery cable right here. It does appear to have maybe another resettable fuse to it, but this up top one here is the common one. So whenever you ask for a positive cable, at least in my case, they were giving me the part number for this, and that's not what I needed. So the only way to go about this top one is to splice in a new section. Unfortunately, that is not the route I wanted to go, but it is what it is, and the vehicle is running fine now. So I was able to get the shop to put a bolt in here. I personally cleaned all this stuff up. I used what's called friction tape. It's similar to electrical tape, a little more OE looking. If you go to your local brick and mortar parts store, you say you want some electrical tape, you're gonna get that shiny vinyl tape, and you tell them friction tape, they might know what you're talking about, or just look online. You should be able to get something similar. I decided to put some corrugated tubing over here because this section is kind of bulked up a bit because of that splice and everything in there. So this is what I'm left with. And you know, if you go to jump start the vehicle, which you probably shouldn't with a vehicle like this where there's so many electrical systems with it, but just in case, I did put in note the positive right here, because now with it all black, well, you can easily mistake it for the negative when the negative's right there. So, and here's the finalized product with the battery covers back in place. So I understand a lot of fuss about this whole thing when it all gets covered up, but at the end of the day, I personally hate hacking anything. If I could replace the whole thing, I would, but not possible with this. So if you're wondering, that did in fact fix the issue on this 2015 and a half Volvo XC60 T6 R Design. And again, hopefully this video helped you out. If it did, give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing, and I'll catch your friends next time.